And that's all you can really ask when there's so little to play for after the NFL's fair resolution. Welcome to the jungle, everyone. I'm Kyle Phelps, and we are back. As many of you know, I didn't release power rankings last week because everything kind of felt weird for a few days after Monday night. Not to mention, that game didn't end up getting played between the Bengals and Bills, so two of the top four teams were kind of stuck. So how do I even rate everybody else? If you're curious, here's a breakdown of how I had the power rankings made up last week ahead of the Monday night matchup. I hid the Super Bowl caliber teams because that category depended on what happened between the Bengals and Bills. But anyway, before we get into breaking all that down, I'd just like to ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. It really helps my channel out, and it helps you know when all of my content drops. So these are the final full power rankings of the 2022 NFL season, guys. I'll probably do something like power rankings next week, but this is definitely the last time that you'll be seeing the full list until next season. As such, one last time, let's go over the bottom three categories. No playoff teams here, despite, this one of the tiers being called the playoff hunt, but, it's just kind of like a naming problem at this point in the season. Real quick, I'll highlight a few teams like the Indianapolis Colts, who are a total and complete joke after losing to the tanking Texans this week. It's a shame, too, because Jeff Saturday was one of my favorite players when I was growing up, the center for the Indianapolis Colts. And now he's just kind of a punchline, Then there's that same Texans team that beat them, and, sure, they screwed up their tank and they fired Lovie Smith, who probably didn't deserve it. But I just kind of have them as a regular bad team at this point, just because they've been playing a little bit better lately, and I think they might have been fighting for Lovie Smith, and so maybe firing him wasn't the best idea. Then again, I think Lovie Smith is used to being fired unfairly at this point. I'm looking at you, Chicago Bears. The Texans showed a lot of fight down the stretch, so if they can get their act together in the front office, then, maybe there's something to build off here. Who on earth would want to deal with that front office? I don't know, but it's just maybe there's a little something, like a spark of life. I don't know. Finally, I want to shout out the Denver Broncos, who I think showed a lot of moxie over the last few weeks. Nothing overly significant by any means, but I think they could find some relevance next year if they find the right coach who can get the most out of Russell Wilson, because I think he showed that he's still got something in him. Alright, so let's move along and go on to Tier 3. It's called the Playoff Hopefuls just because that's what I call it throughout the year. But there's no hope anymore. These teams, other than the last two, are making the playoffs. So we'll briefly touch on the Lions and Steelers, who just missed out at 15 and 16. Both came oh so close to making the playoffs and took care of their end of the bargain in Week 18. They just couldn't get everything else to fall in the right direction for them, so they didn't end up being one of the top 14 teams in the league. So at number 14, I've got the Miami Dolphins. They looked horrible against an even more horrible-looking Jets team on Sunday. I imagine they're probably going to get plowed by the Bills in the first round. I'd honestly rather see a team like the Lions in there. The Steelers, I think the Steelers have more fight than the Dolphins, but the Dolphins are the team that, did enough to make it. Next up, I've got the Seattle Seahawks at number 13. Perhaps they're a little bit more of a worthy 7 seed than the Dolphins. So, the fact that the Lions didn't make it, it's like at least the Seahawks deserved it, Number 12, I've got the Baltimore Ravens. They're more inspiring than the 2 7 seeds, but that's, quite frankly, about it. They got an okay defense. It's like perhaps if Lamar comes back, they'll have a chance to make some noise in the first round. But honestly, I'm kind of wondering if we've seen the last of Lamar Jackson in a Ravens uniform back in Week 13. Finally, number 11, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't really believe in this team either. This category has become a list of teams that probably don't deserve to be in the playoffs. That said, making the playoffs with a losing record means you had to overcome your own bullshit in addition to getting really lucky. that's a dangerous combination in the playoffs, to be fair. Moving along, we're going to start talking about some teams that have some semblance of expectations over the next few weeks. Number 10, I've got the Los Angeles Chargers, and okay, so maybe I lied a little bit. I don't really expect a whole lot out of them either, but Justin Herbert is still a damn good quarterback, so they should still have a chance, and I definitely believe in them more than I believe in any of the playoff hopeful teams. Number 9, the Dallas Cowboys look like they're limping into the postseason, but this is still a team that has looked like a legit Super Bowl contender at points this year, so I'm not giving up on them just yet. Number 8, the New York Giants nearly knocked the Eagles off their pedestal with backups in Week 18. Brian Daboll alone is a damn weapon, so they're a team to watch as long as he is on the sideline. Number 7, I've got the Minnesota Vikings. I have no idea which Vikings team is going to show up this week, but I do know that they're a damn talented team. If they can heat up a little bit, that could take them all the way to the Super Bowl, honestly. Finally, at number 6, I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, the 9-8 AFC champions are the number 6 team in the NFL. But seriously, everyone, this Jaguars team that we've seen since their bye week is a completely different animal than the 3-7 team that we saw before the bye week. This team is one of the hottest in football right now, and I honestly think Doug Peterson should be in consideration for Coach of the Year with the job he's done with the Jacksonville Jaguars, turning them around. That said, I'm not quite ready to put them into the top tier, so let's move on to the Super Bowl caliber teams. Starting off at number 5, I've got the San Francisco 49ers. 9 wins in a row is ridiculous, and Brock Purdy's legend is growing by the day. Number 4, I've got the Buffalo Bills. I'm not going to lie, whoever won last week's game against the Bengals probably would have been my number 1 team both last week and this week. The loser probably would have been the number 5 team both last week and this week. I see both these teams still as Super Bowl caliber teams, regardless of what had happened last week. But the Bills took care of a Patriots team fighting for their playoff lives this week, and that's all you can really ask when there's so little to play for after the NFL's fair resolution. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs secured the AFC's number 1 seed with a decisive win over the Las Vegas Raiders this week. But it's also the first decisive win I've seen from them in a few weeks. That's why I've got the Cincinnati Bengals ahead of them at number 2, and I've had them there for a while, right? I was so ready to put them at number 1 last week, but I eventually feel like you can't judge teams after 9 minutes of football, so it wasn't really fair to move anybody. So I abstained, and the result is this week I just couldn't justify doing it because, they got off to a really hot start against the Ravens and then kind of took their foot off the gas pedal, and then, the Eagles won, so can't knock them now. Finally, at number 1, the Philadelphia Eagles stay put. They struggled a little bit over the last few weeks, like I just said, but that was with Jalen Hurts out. Jalen Hurts comes back. Eagles win, NFL's officially on notice. They struggled a little bit with the Giants, but the Giants are a playoff team too. So here is the whole NFL power rankings for the 2022 season, guys. Where did your team end up after it's all said and done? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll feature the best ones in my next video, like this one from Jim NFL7, who said, here's my top 4 rankings. I think he meant 5, but he said 4. 1 Bills, 2 49ers, 3 Eagles, 4 Bengals, 5 Cowboys. He also insists you should check his channel out too, so hey, why not? Here's your plug, Jim. Anyway, do you really not have the Chiefs in your top 5? I suppose that's fair. They haven't been doing great lately, but they're still the Chiefs, right? And also, in fairness, I may be underrating the 49ers just because of the way that I handle power rankings, and I just felt like there hasn't been enough movement ahead of them for them to get higher. But I still think the Cincinnati Bengals are better than the Buffalo Bills. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. We'll likely find out next week if the Bengals and Bills both take care of business this week against their wild card round opponents, and then they'll most likely play. Actually, if they both win, the Bengals and Bills will play each other next week in the divisional round. But until then, y'all can always find more of what I do at KylePhelps92 on Twitter, Facebook.com/ThePhelps, ATBNetwork.com, Butt Fumble Sports, the Battle of Ohio podcast, which has its own YouTube channel, and right here if you subscribe. We're on to the playoffs, everyone, and the stage is set. I'm excited to see what happens, but for now, I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hootie!